Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me.
It's all about making sure that you are well, not just in your sales career, but in every aspect of you being a woman of color. Now, let me tell you something. The name of this panel is The Balancing Act: Exploration of Mental and Physical Health as a Woman of Color in Sales and Business. And we have awesome and amazing voices from this particular community who is going to give you insight on how you can be well, mind, body, and spirit. So first and foremost, we have Zoya, who is of Strategic Sales Development Manager at Gong. We also have Miss Colette, who is Pre-Sales Director at Workday, as well as Miss Vanessa, who is the Manager of Customer Success at Slack. We also have Lita, who is the Editor-in-Chief at Self Magazine at Condé Nast. So if you are interested in not just soaring in your sales career, but you are committed to being a whole woman and wellness is your priority, you want to pay close attention to this panel, because I promise you what you're learning today is really going to explode your career and especially kind of get you together mentally and physically as a woman of color in your sales position. Stay tuned to this awesome wellness panel.
Thank you so much, Quinn. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm especially excited to speak with our panel, Colette, Vanessa, and Zoya. Thank you all for being here with me, and I can't wait to talk about this very important topic. Wellness as employees and wellness as workers is so important right now, especially with all we're going through. And so I really want to kick it off just kind of from there, from like a kind of bird's eye view of how you all have been doing during this pandemic, and what advice you have for people, maybe people on your team, maybe if you're a manager, your direct reports, what kind of advice you've given to people as we all cope with 18 months and counting of a pretty stressful situation. And I will kick it off with, how about Zoya?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm also super excited to be here. I manage a team at Gong, and we talk about this really frequently on my team. The two words that come to mind are boundaries and routine. So it's really important to set those boundaries, make them really clear. For me, I have my calendar. It's totally accessible to everyone on my team. They can see what meetings I'm in. They can see when I'm on. I'll carve out time during the day to go on walks. I'll carve out time during the day to do things that I would do typically if I were in the office that at the start of the pandemic, I was forgetting to do those things for whatever reason. I was working really late, working until 8 sometimes. And then I took a step back and I thought, I wouldn't leave the office at 8. So also building in that routine. And one of the things that I've done, it's personally helped me, actually schedule in a fake commute home, where I take a walk when I'm done with working hours, get all of it done, walk, maybe I'll check my phone, but the laptop doesn't come open after that.
I love that. I love the idea of a fake commute. That's like, I feel like we probably haven't missed commutes as much as we have in these last 18 months, because I certainly did not miss my commute. And now I'm like, oh, I'm not listening to my podcasts in the same way that I was when I had to be on the subway for 45 minutes. So that's a great idea. Colette, do you have anything to add? How have you kind of motivated people or motivated yourself in this kind of trying time?
I love that, boundaries and routine. So I'll add to that. So in sales, I traveled a lot. So a lot of times during the month I was gone. Any given week I was gone for a couple of days a week. And then in March of 2020, that just stopped cold turkey. So it was difficult as a person in sales to adjust to that. I joked with my husband, like, we're going to be at each other's throats. I don't know what we'll do, because never before in my career had I not traveled. So I was looking at this big adjustment, like, what am I going to do? This is going to be really hard. So I turned to nature. And there were many days, especially early on in the pandemic, when I would go down to the beach early in the morning, sit, take a walk, do some stretching, just to really get in tune with nature. And we also, we joke about it, but we ended up buying bird feeders. So we bought these bird feeders. We have like a lot of hummingbirds and a lot of regular birds. So we really got to enjoy nature. And these are things that when I was traveling, I didn't get a chance to do. So I guess to kind of wrap it around, I began to really connect with my home, my family more, and with nature. And as a person in sales, it's something that I never was able to do because I've spent decades on the road. In terms of routine too, I also went to the health aspect. So for the first time, I was able to sleep regularly. I was able to hydrate regularly. I was able to get physical activity regularly. And I was able to really focus on my nutrition regularly because I wasn't out, eating out and eating bad foods. So those are like the four holistic things I look at for well-being. And I really put a focus on all of those and kept a routine, like working out first thing in the morning and not checking my phone, setting those boundaries on my schedule when I did need to take a break and get away, making sure I was eating good foods because I had a chance to do that. And then all the while really getting a chance to enjoy nature and enjoy my home. So it really, I really took the opportunity to turn over a new leaf and to explore a different side of me that I just didn't have a chance to being on the road all of these years in sales. On the boundaries that Zoya mentioned, it's interesting. I started putting these meetings on my calendar. So as soon as the secret's out, my team might see this and they'll know. But I put non-meeting work time because it's so easy to go from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, video conference to video conference when you're working from home. So I had to put boundaries in when I just needed to get some work done or just to do some thinking time. So really set those boundaries. That's another go-to thing that I've done during the pandemic.
So smart. It can be really exhausting to go from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, and that it's the end of the day and you realize you haven't had time to get back to your emails or you haven't had time to brainstorm. And so that's very smart to kind of schedule that time into your schedule and your meetings. Vanessa, do you have any tips or tricks to add?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I already love so much of what both Zoya and Colette said. Maybe a couple of things I would add, and this is for myself, but also just for my team, anyone that I work with. You mentioned, this has been 18 months, and I think that's a long period of time. I think one of the things that I think about when it comes to wellness and mental health is that it's not just like this straight linear line of like, I feel bad and then I feel better, or, I feel better, now I feel bad. Things come and go in waves. There'll be a couple of weeks where you'll feel more anxiety, right? There'll be other things going on besides the pandemic. So a lot of racial injustice conversations that we've been having that were really heavy to have, different wars going on, things like that. So I think the first thing is just being okay with that, letting your team know that that's okay. You're going to feel better some weeks. You're going to feel maybe less better some weeks. And so, I think just coming to terms with that it is not linear. A couple of things that, the other panelists have said that, I've really leaned into, which is, what are the things that give you joy, and how can you bring more of those into your day to day? So, again, I love the comment on the fake commute and building that in. So now that I do personally, because I do work remotely and so does my team, we have more time in the mornings or after work to go on those walks to, if you do love a podcast, how do you get to listen to that while you get ready in the morning or after work when you wrap up? So, again, I think it's just being okay with the fact that it's not always going to be up or down. And then again, just finding, small ways to really bring more joy into your life. And sometimes that involves your coworkers. So how do you send nice notes to people when they do something well? And that can be someone on your team that reports into you. It can be a leader who did a really great strategy session or presentation, and it can be a cross-functional partner as well. I think there's so much joy that you get when you do something nice for others, and it just builds relationship. And I think so much of wellness is the relationships you do build and put time into. So maybe again, that's another thing that I find that really gives me joy throughout my workday is telling people kudos when they do something really well.
I love that. That's so nice, and it's kind of what we've been missing is that kind of connection with people, and we're not able to just like pop into someone's office or pop by their desk and tell them that they did a great job. So it's really nice that you're making the effort, and I think that's a great idea. Vanessa, I'm so glad that you kind of brought up the topic of racial injustice, because I did want to kind of take space since we are at this panel and at this conference. I think what the long overdue social justice movement from last summer, it was pretty difficult for a lot of people to, show up to work and pretend everything's okay and put in your 40 hours. So I did want to create some space and to talk about, or just to like kind of check in with all of y'all to see how you're feeling, because I'm sure, you know, as Black women, we all can relate to what it's been like to kind of be in one, a pandemic, two, this kind of racially charged climate, and three, kind of, you know, people who have kind of dealt with it for over a year, and now we're seeing, you know, other groups also dealing with it as well, with the anti-Asian violence and the anti-Semitic violence and things like that. So wanted to kind of just check in with all of you and talk about it for a second. I don't know if I have a question, but I guess how are you feeling is the question. I'll start with you, Colette.
How am I feeling? So it's been a journey. Last summer, with the George Floyd murder, my company, which is Workday, had a series of town halls. And for the first time in my life, I saw a company actually shed light on this and keep the light on it. So I was fortunate enough to listen in on a town hall and a panel where we got to hear from other people of color and injustices that have been dealt to them. So no longer was it that person's on TV, oh, too bad what happened to them, or that person lived in the wrong neighborhood, wrong side of the tracks. These were workmates. These are people you work with who were having these injustices happen to them. So it really brought it to light. I got an opportunity as well to share my story, which was scary, you know, on a big town hall. So at that time, I felt good, like, boy, things are good. We're actually putting a light on this. Companies are donating and putting their time into it. And then as time goes on, to be honest with you, I feel almost like there's a lack of control. Like now I can't control things. The pandemic has gone on for so long. There's been more injustices. So there are times when it feels like the world is still skidding around and I'm not able to quite hang on. So it feels a little wobbly. It has felt good to be able to do something about it as part of a company. It has been good to put energy into efforts to help with social injustice, but it can get just a little bit where you feel like you're still a little bit out of control. So I guess to answer your question, I feel a little bit mixed these days, where I wish it could just make it go away and everything right, but we're still having these conversations and injustice. I guess the positive thing I'll end on is that just the awareness and just the energy that's gone on from my company to others, just to see that outpouring has been really, really heartening. And I just hope we don't lose that momentum.
Same. Zoya or Vanessa, do you have anything to add or that you would like to add?
At the start, I was surprised at how vulnerable I felt. I felt really vulnerable, and I felt a little bit, or pretty skeptical actually, because, you know, I've been a woman of color, I've been Black my whole life. I've been working and going to school, and all of a sudden there was this attention, which race wasn't spoken about at lots of workplaces that I had been at. And now there was so much attention and focus, and in really fantastic ways from senior leadership and managers and colleagues. But at the start, it was a little unnerving, because it went from you just pretend that race doesn't exist at work, and now everyone in a really overwhelming way is very conscious of my racial identity. And I think it was for the best. Like it opened up all of these conversations, and I was able to share some of my experiences as well. But I definitely, at the start, I was going through a lot. Everyone was, right? And then on top of that, I almost felt a little bit of a pressure to be at the forefront, because I was a person who identified with the group that was having a lot of acts of violence against them. So that was a helpful learning lesson, especially as the pandemic did go on. And as you mentioned, Colette, other identities had these, you know, very similar experiences, I was really conscious of that. I remembered thinking, okay, I want to make sure I'm supportive, and I want to make sure that I'm here, and I want to make sure I'm giving people the voice in the same way that people gave me. But I also want to be conscious that some people might be feeling really vulnerable, and they might not feel like they're in a position to share at that time. And so it was helpful. Like I said, ultimately it was positive. I was really impressed with how so many people showed up, and the skepticism, I think it was valid. But it was nice to be proven wrong, that for a lot of people, it was simply that it was something they hadn't understood. They didn't have access to it, and suddenly they did, which is great. And so to see that it was genuine for so many people was really, really great. And yeah, I'm at a company now with coworkers who are definitely putting in the work for the community. And it feels so good to be connected to that community and to be able to take those lessons that I learned from being in my own community, and just being mindful of how different people are going to feel. Even if it's a good wave, it's a wave of acknowledgement, it's a wave of progress. You have to make sure that, speaking of self-care, right, that a person has taken that time to care for themselves, and that they're now in a position to be public facing, to share their experiences.
That's such a good point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Vanessa.
I was just gonna add another point, which is, I also feel really lucky, at a company like Slack, where even at the most senior levels, right, our CEO, all of our exec staff, they really do care about this. But I do want to acknowledge that, not everyone maybe is as fortunate to work in such super progressive companies. Like, I know Zoe and I, we're for SF-based, companies, so I think maybe one thing that I would maybe offer someone who doesn't work at a Slack or a Gong, right, is, how can you sometimes find people that you can relate to, you can have real conversations with. So sometimes you're lucky that there is employee resource groups or affinity groups, so whatever you call them. So for example, at Slack, we have a really amazing, powerful, we call our Mahogany community. And that's for all people who identify as African-American or part of the African diaspora. And we're able to have, private channels and safe spaces and Zoom meetings where we can talk about how we're feeling and how we're processing everything that's going on. And, how do we really want to try to move the needle forward on a lot of these things. And sometimes it's not moving the needle forward on initiatives or hiring or these other lofty D&I topics. It's just having people to talk with about how we're feeling. But again, even if you don't have those employee resource groups at your company, how can you reach out to people on LinkedIn that are maybe in a similar tech industry or maybe in a similar job, and just try to form that community yourself? Again, friends are also going to be a part of this. So just wanted to offer that as well. Just having a community where you can talk about these things, I think, is so important. And so just finding different ways to do that, whether it's in your company or outside, I think is just something that we all should really make the time and space to do. Even though I know it's hard to make the space for it, it really does help. And I think it gives you more energy for the work that you then do need to do, which again can be this really good kind of feedback loop. So I just wanted to offer that.
Yeah, that's such a great tip. Love it. Also, I love the kind of juxtaposition between, like, Vanessa, your tip of like, okay, you can be proactive, you can, join this ERG group, you can reach out to colleagues. And Zoya, your kind of tip about, yes, you can do all those things, but also make sure you're taking care of yourself, and also make sure that you do want to be front facing, because it is an added responsibility, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. You shouldn't feel the burden of, being the face of something if you're not in the right space for it. That's totally fine. And Colette, I love kind of the positivity of, yes, the awareness is amazing. The idea of this is all a lot, but before this all happened, before George Floyd, before Breonna Taylor, we weren't really talking about these things, and that's progress, and that's something that we can all feel good about, even though, it has as you say, I also feel very mixed about everything, but awareness is good, and we need to continue these conversations. So all good things. Okay, so I wanted, on a lighter note, let's talk about, so you all talked about the importance of creating boundaries, the importance of taking breaks during the day, but I also really like talking about PTO and using your PTO, and not being not feeling guilty about taking your PTO. So wondering what everyone kind of thinks about, like, what is your ideal vacation, or what is your ideal way to take a break from work and actually recharge so that you can come back to work, even if it is still work from home, and feel ready to tackle the day. Vanessa, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it was funny. What as you were saying that question, I was just thinking about. I think it's going to be different for every single person, right?
Yeah.
So I will have to admit, and everyone who knows me probably knows this. I am pretty extroverted, right? You know, when you think about introversion versus extroversion, I do get energy and joy from spending time with people who are close to me. And some people like to go on the beach by themselves or like lone hikes with maybe one other person. So, for example, this past week, which was Labor Day weekend for us here in the United States, I took off most of Friday and then obviously had Monday off. And that whole time I was with a big group of friends down in San Diego. I'm currently located in San Francisco. You know, we all traveled down there together. I think, you know, probably spending time together was maybe like 13 of us. And these are great friends of mine that I've known since college. And that gave me energy, right? Hearing what's going on in people's lives, hearing the wins and sometimes the challenges that people are having in their personal lives or career lives. And so for me, like that's my ideal vacation, which I know some people might not resonate or agree with, but I think a big part of wellness is trying different things and kind of, again, maybe it's yoga, maybe for you it's not yoga, right? Maybe it's like the weightlifting, and maybe it's the big trips with friends, and maybe it's not, maybe it's a solo meditation retreat. So I think, again, a part of just maturing and growing up is trying different things and see what resonates with you most, what gives you the energy most. And I just happen to know for me it is being around a lot of people that I care about. So that's my answer.
I feel like we all could use a beach trip to San Diego. That's how I feel like that's a pretty universal thing, but you know, maybe not. Colette, do you have an ideal vacation or ideal way to recharge and take your PTO?
I do. Minimum of 2 weeks. I highly recommend everybody take a minimum of 2-week vacation. Here's why. So first, there's the lead up. You've got the vacation booked. There's that lead up before the vacation where you're anticipating it. You feel good. You're looking forward to it. It's like, yes, it's coming. So you got to have that. Then you have to have the time to ease into it. Like if it's too short of a vacation, you're kind of like, as soon as you ease into it, you're back to work. So that's why that 2-week minimum is great, because you got a couple of days on the front end to kind of slow down, get into it. And then you got a few days on the back end to kind of, you know, get your mind back, get your mind right to get back to work. And then there's that afterglow. After a good vacation, you get back to work and you still have that warm and fuzzy feeling for at least a week or two. So that's why I think at least 2 weeks, more if you can do it. The ideal place, I think I'll take San Diego on the beach any day. But if I had my pick, Hawaii on the beach, just getting away to an island, having that 2 weeks, you got the time zone thing you can work out. You're totally away. You can shuffle around. It's just nice. I'm getting excited thinking about it. So if I get up in the middle of this panel and just go get a ticket and leave, you'll know where I'm going. But I would highly recommend that. And Vanessa, agree with you that doing things that you love to really recharge as a person in sales, as a woman of color in sales, we need that recharging and just having that time block at least once a year, 2 weeks. Highly recommend it.
Noted. 2-week minimum. I love that. Zoya, are we going to go 3 for 3 with the beach?
Gotta go 3 for 3. Clearly, there's a theme on this panel.
There's a theme for sure.
So to make it a little different, because I 100% everything Colette said. I mean, I don't know if I can swing 2 weeks, but love the Hawaii vacation. I will talk about, I do think it's important to diversify the vacations. So for me, I have a sporty side. So I have like some vacations where I want to go snorkeling and surfing and do, you know, very active things. And then I have vacations. Sometimes you can do both, but I tend not to, where I want to relax and I want to sit on the beach and I don't want to do anything. So I think, you know, it's similar to what we were talking about, different strokes for different folks. But Those are kind of my two that I go back and forth between, and I like to think about it in advance. So I just had a very relaxing vacation. Do I want to do a more adventure time one? So I've gone camping, and definitely that's one where I need to put time between it. I don't like to do back-to-back camping or backpacking trips. So I think that's one. And then to throw one more in there, since it's a pandemic time, there's nothing wrong with a staycation.
Very true.
So especially, I think so much of my advice I learned in the last 18 months, by the way. Like, I wasn't a guru at self-care or wellness during remote work until I had to work remotely. And then I realized it was really important to me to get good at it. I wasn't taking enough PTO at all at the start of the pandemic. And I almost felt guilty about it. I thought, well, I'm not going to go anywhere, so should I even take it? And we didn't know how long it would be. So there were all these reasons for why I was hesitant. But then I just woke up in the middle of the pandemic and I thought, this will not do. So I'm a fan also of just a staycation or a local trip, like mix it up, go get a hotel somewhere, maybe not necessarily in San Francisco, but like somewhere else in California. Much to see. You can drive there really easily. That's a good hack for the pandemic, I think.
I wish I could do a staycation. I always have a problem because the desk and the work is there to like really unplug, but I wish I could do that.
I love a staycation. I think they're great. I'm always ready to go on a staycation. It just feels different, and like you don't have to like make that much effort, which is always nice. So I love how strategic you all are about your vacation strategy. So thank you very much for sharing your tips. On that note, I do think that you all have such great advice, and I've learned so much so far about how you think of self-care and the importance of boundaries and things like that. One thing that I really think is important is mentorship, especially for women of color and Black people in general. I love the idea of paying it forward, because it can be really hard to get those opportunities if you don't know, if you don't see yourselves in the people at the top. So I would love to hear from all of you about what you think about mentorship, and if any advice you have for people who are looking to be a mentor or mentee, or just kind of participate in this kind of learning environment that we often can have, within our work environments, and also externally as well. Vanessa, do you have any thoughts on this? Would you like to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, I have so many thoughts on this, but I'll try to keep it short since I want to hear everyone else's thoughts too. A couple things came to mind. One is, are you in a company where there's something formal, right? So there's a program you can apply to, and Slack, again, so amazing to be able to work at a company like Slack that really takes development and mentorship very seriously. We had like a Rising Tides formal mentorship program that was for underrepresented groups within the company that you had to apply for and say why you want to be part of this program. And they did pair me with a very senior customer success leader based out of Europe who truly is a champion for a lot of this. And it was just such a great way to get visibility into where do I want to go within the company, what are the things I should be doing, just very tangible things. So again, if you can work at a company like that, or even apply to a mentorship program that's maybe outside of your company, Google anything like that could exist. But then again, flipping it back to those who might not be at a company that can offer that. One thing I'll always say about mentorship is that it generally tends to be a little bit more informal. I think now looking back in my career, I have a couple mentors, I would say, within Slack, outside of Slack. I never like LinkedIn someone or emailed them or Slacked them and said, hi, can you be my mentor? Like I've never done that. And I think maybe some people think it is like that formal big thing and they get overwhelmed and then don't make the asks. But it's starting with, hey, when I moved into this new manager role a few months ago, I reached out to, a couple people that I really admired at Slack that were directors or VPs. And I said, hey, I know you're really busy, but in the next, 2 to 3 weeks, as I step into this manager role, can I get a coffee chat with you and get your thoughts on, approach to managing here at Slack, any books that you'd recommend? So, again, something very bite-sized, right? It's not like this huge, big ask. And over time, you form a relationship with people and they can really become your mentors. On the flip side, I think it doesn't have to be that big VP, right? A couple people that I think are my mentors now are probably kind of peers, right? Maybe they're managing another team in a different region. And it's just great to have someone that you can toss around ideas with or work through challenges with. So, mentors don't always have to be this person that's like 4 skip levels above you. Yeah. And then again, I really do believe in mentoring other people as well. So that's people, of course, on my team. And I think that's my biggest role as a manager of a team. But again, I participate in other formal mentorship programs outside of Slack. So I do one through SV Academy for CSMs. I do one for SEO Scholars, which has a New York and San Francisco based chapter. So again, I truly believe in the power of paying it forward. So yeah, that's why I'll leave my answer. And I'd love to hear what Colette and Zoe have to think.
So first, I'll have to say that peer-to-peer mentorships are awesome, and totally agree. It doesn't always have to be, like someone at a higher level, or you don't always have to mentor someone at a lower level. You can kind of learn from people at all levels, and I think that's important to remember. Zoya, do you have anything to add about mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to echo the appreciation for both formal and informal. Love them both. I'm a formal mentor at FlockJ, and then some of the best mentorship experiences I've had are where we don't even necessarily call each other mentor, mentee. So I would say people should definitely be on the lookout and open to that. So how to recognize a mentor? It's somebody who is genuinely happy for your successes. It's someone who you have a challenge and they're one of the first people you think of. What would so-and-so do in this role? And really, I think thinking of it in that way, in a relationship type of way, less than almost, I feel like sometimes when people are new to mentorship, they think of it as like a transactional type of experience. Just by the way, I think sometimes like we talk about, or it used to be spoken about. So really changing that mindset of who do I have relationships with, who do I trust, who's there for me, and really just making the time to feed those relationships, to give attention to them, is a really, really effective way at doing the non-formal mentorship.
So smart. Colette, do you have anything you'd like to add?
A couple of things. If I look back on my career, if I could do anything differently, it would have been to network more and to have more mentors and to really get people who, from a lot of different perspectives. So as a person coming up in sales, I think it's important to surround yourself also with people who have a different perspective than you, who might be older or younger or just a different path. So just the more diverse of a perspective, the better, because you're going to get to see things from a different perspective. You're going to get to potentially have doors open and from different perspectives than you would normally. So get a diverse set of mentors, and you're never too early in your career to mentor. There could be people who are older than you that you could mentor. So you have something to bring to the table. So as a mentor and as a mentee, to really go forward. And it's, like I say, I can't emphasize that enough. It's really important to get those mentors with as many different perspectives and viewpoints all throughout your career. So do not be afraid to ask for help. I think, as was mentioned earlier, that informal mentorship, just reaching out for coffee chats, is brilliant. Don't make it this big formal thing. Just reach out and have chats. It's critical. It's very important.
I love that. I really love your tip, Colette, about how it's never too early for you to mentor. I've heard from, many people at director, VP levels and above about how much they have learned from people who they maybe even have like a mentor who are their mentees essentially, and how much they've enjoyed that sort of relationship because they actually learned a lot as well. And I certainly have as well, and learned lots of things from my entire team. So I feel like that's a great tidbit to always remember, is that we are all always learning and we all don't know everything. So it's always good to be curious and to also offer up your expertise as well. I know we're kind of wrapping up soon, but I did have one more kind of one or two questions depending on how much time we have. But first off, would love to know what keeps you all motivated and why that keeps you motivated. And that can be a pretty general question. It doesn't have to be like what keeps you motivated at work, but just wondering, as you do what you do, as you work in your field, what motivates you, just in your life. Zoya, do you want to start?
Sure. I think it's a connected answer, both in my life and at work. Growth, forward movement are what excite me. So even my hobbies, I like to really approach them, it's like my micro goals and things like that. I think that's what drew me to sales in the first place, that you can quantify it, you can see it, you can set a new goal next quarter, next year. So I think it's related to that, but in terms of like what gets me excited about work, I think it's really feeling like I have a purpose. So for me, I am lucky. I found management, and I realized how much that really connects with me, my soul, the things I care about. So it's great when I do my hobbies, I get to focus on my own growth, but I really do enjoy focusing on developing others. So for me, it's really seeing they have potential, building them up. I manage SDRs, so these are often people who are brand new to sales. Building that confidence, building that skill set, and then seeing where they end up taking their careers after they're on my team. That's really exciting, and it's just as rewarding, but actually I'd say more rewarding than having those goals that I get to set for myself, but working with someone where they set a goal and I figure out how to help them achieve that goal.
Awesome. Colette, do you have what motivates you?
What motivates me is I've never hit the wall. Like I'm always pushing because there's always something new, always pushing the envelope, if that makes sense. So in my personal life, I don't settle and think that just because you're this age, you can't do X, Y, Z. When I was 38, learned how to surf. When I turned 50, I did 10 pull-ups in a row for my 50th birthday.
Wow.
When I was 53, I started to learn how to walk on my hands. Now at the age of 55, I can walk across the gym on my hands, and I made the top of our sport, which is CrossFit, was able to go to the games and participate this year.
Wow.
I carry that into my work as well. There's always something to learn. So I always push myself to learn more, to be better, to really chase excellence. And that mindset really keeps me motivated because there's never done. Each day is a new gift. It's a new day. It's a chance to be better in both work and personal life. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Can I just pause and just say, Colette, I feel like you have it all figured out. You're like working, you're going on 2 weeks plus vacations.
That was what you said would be the ideal vacation. I wish I did that, but
that's true.
But I appreciate that compliment.
And congratulations on all the feats. I've actually watched the CrossFit Games at some point, and it is very intense. So kudos to you. That is very impressive. Vanessa, what motivates you?
Yeah, I mean, I think heavy plus everything I just heard, right? Which is, how am I continuing to grow in some way every day? And maybe sometimes you do miss a day because you just got so overwhelmed, like reacting and catching up on things. So also just, having some grace with yourself. And, but I do, try to continue growing and learning new things. I think for me, what motivates me, it's a couple of things. Am I working at a company that I'm excited about, that I think is interesting? And just because you're excited about a company and believe in the mission doesn't mean that every day smells like roses, right? There's still going to be stressful days, but overall, do you feel like you're in a company that's making you happy and making people's lives a little bit better in some way? So I think that's what motivates me, and I think Slack is a company that checks all those boxes. I'd also say a big part of motivation for me is just continuing to grow and build a life that I'm excited and happy to live. So, a big part, we haven't talked about it much here, about finances, is if you work hard and do the right things, sometimes you get compensated for that. And with that money, you can, take these vacations or spend more time with your family and, give nice gifts to, family and people you love. So I think that that's also something that, real talk does motivate me as well. And I think that that's something that especially people of color and women of color maybe don't talk about as much as maybe we should. So I thought I'd maybe mention that. But yeah, again, how am I growing? How am I continue to build a great life for myself and people around me, I think is what keeps me motivated.
That's great. Thank you. And yes, the great reminder that it's perfectly acceptable for your job's salary to motivate you to do that job. That is kind of why we're at work. So, I mean, among other things, of course, but at the crux of it, we're not there just for fun. We're there because we are working. So it's perfectly valid. Well, thank you so much. I think we have time for one more question. So I wanted to kind of keep it like a short, simple, your favorite, say you have 2 minutes and you want to take a break. What is your favorite way to take a break and to practice self-care? Zoya, you start.
2 minutes. I did share with you all. I love the simple pleasures.
Yeah.
All right. I think I love a hot cup of tea.
Nice. Who doesn't like a hot cup of tea?
Yeah, 2 minutes between meetings, make myself a nice lavender tea.
Nice.
With honey.
Colette, what's your favorite 2-minute self-care tip?
Okay, I wish I could honestly say a nice 2-minute meditation or something really groovy like that. I'll just be honest, I'm going to embarrass myself. I'll play solitaire, like a game of solitaire on my phone, and like a 2-minute in between meetings or 5 minutes. Something about it, just getting the mind moving and just disconnecting, or just mindless fun.
Mm-hmm.
Solitaire on the iPhone. Sorry.
Nothing to apologize for. That's great.
Yeah. And I guess for mine, 2 minutes, again, not very much of a long time, but again, I also like love podcasts and I love music. And so sometimes it's like, do I have a quick second to like go in the kitchen and maybe like just do like a quick errand, but also I'm listening to a little bit of a podcast or a song that's, I really like at the moment. And I find that gives me energy. So that'll be my answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, Colette, and Zoya. It's been really, really great speaking with you, and I learned a lot, and hopefully everyone in the audience did as well. So I really appreciate your time. I cannot wait to go book my 2-week beach vacation. And yes, I appreciate everyone's advice, and this was a great reminder that we all need to take some time for ourselves and our loved ones and our family, and that our health is our priority and should be our priority. So thank you again.